So this is going to be my Zenyatta movement and firing guide, or aiming guide. In this I'm going to cover a couple techniques that I used that I think really helped me progress from where I was sitting a couple seasons ago. I was kind of like hard stuck masters with, I was climbing to last season capping at 4.1. So bear in mind everything I say is only really valid up to that point. I'm not sure if these continue to go on. I don't have knowledge of being a top 500 Zen, but I do have knowledge of being a kind of like low GM high master Zen. So for those of you that are slightly lower than that, like diamond players, I'd say that these tips would help. So yeah, here we go. So basically, there are I'm going to start with movement here, and there are two types of movement in the game. There's movement when you're against a projectile-based hero, like Zen himself or Hanzo or something like that. And then there's movement when you're against someone like a hit scan hero, like McCree. So I guess we'll start with projectiles. So in general, when you're against a projectile hero, you want to strafe wider than you do with a hit scan. And to show you what this kind of looks like, I'll get paint up here. So if this is the enemy, let's say, and this is you, your strafes are going to be quite wide. And the idea here is that when they're about to shoot, so let's say you're moving along this path to the left, they're about to shoot here, okay? So at this point you would be here, moving left, right? So just as you're moving up to where they're about to shoot, this would be like, let's say this is a Zen v Zen, this is their orb coming in, they want their orb to hit you, right? Just as they send their orb out, you want to then change direction, because that orb is locked in path. So they send the orb out, you change direction. Then as they're about to send another orb out to where you're going on this path over here, you want to again change direction, and then the orb goes past you. And so you want to kind of keep in this wider strafe where you can occasionally change it up, because otherwise they get a bit, wise and go, okay, well last time you changed direction here, so I'm going to send one out over here now, and it'll hit. So instead of going this full way over here, you maybe want to go here and then back. But that's kind of like the gist of it. You basically want to almost bait out their projectile just as you change direction. And this works for everything, not just a Zen. So these could be fire rockets, these could be Hanzo arrows. In general, you don't want to take a 1 versus 1 with a Hanzo, but if you have to, then that's kind of how you would go about doing it. And then there's a distinct difference there. If this is hit scan, so this is a McCree, let's say, let's say this is just a McCree without flashbang, or even a soldier or a Zarya or something like that. You want to have a lot shorter strafe pattern, so spamming AD, not so fast that you're just still, so I'll show you in the game. So if you're doing it this quick, it's almost pointless. I'm getting a bit of lag for some reason. There we go. So if you're just spamming it this quick, it's kind of pointless. You want to be around this sort of speed, and also throwing in some crouches here and there. And not just staying in one spot, so don't just do it like this. Like you wanna kind of go like one way, then the other way, and then back, and then kind of like mix up. I'm lagging right now. I don't know why, but yeah, kind of mix up where you're going. So here, the hit scan is obviously reaction based, so they'll see you moving this way, and then they'll try and flick onto you. But by that point, you want to be in another place. So it's kind of like these guys can shoot so much more. So much faster, I guess, in a sense, that you want to be moving as much as you can. And also ducking, weaving your head down so that your hitbox starts to kind of look like this on your head and stuff like this, and moving when you're, if that makes sense. Imagine this is Zen, right? Your head wants to move in this kind of pattern, stuff like this, where you change direction and duck at the same time, stuff like that. Just kind of anything random I find works. Not so random in that you're just, holy Christ, okay, not so random that you have no idea what you're doing anymore, but random enough where you're kind of very, very difficult to predict. So that's kind of like the basic type of movement with Zen. I'm actually just going to relog here. See if this helps. So yeah, that's the basic kind of movement. Much more frequent direction changes against a projectile, against a hit scan, and a lot longer direction changes when you're against projectile, like this projectile and something like this hit scan. Obviously with projectile you can add ducks in or crouches in, but I find they're a lot more effective against hit scan. So yeah. Next I'm going to talk about the types of aiming with Zen, or the types of shooting, I guess, in which there are 3 types, but I think before we get there, there's an important part of Zen on like fundamentally how he aims. With any projectile this is, but I'll do Zen as an example, obviously. So if you imagine this is you, and this is an enemy, and this enemy is moving over here. Basically, flicking is the way that you want to shoot Zen's left clicks for... basically, you know how fast your orb's going to travel to get to approximately how far away this guy is. So if this person's moving and it's going to take them 2 seconds to get here, and it's going to take your orb 0.5 seconds to get here, 0.5 seconds to get here, right? You know you need to flick over to here and it will take 2.5 seconds for this to occur. But you also need to know the correct angle. So you have to basically make a quick calculation in your head. This guy's moving at this speed, my orb takes this long to get there, this is where I have to aim to get my orb and their head to impact at the same time. And the reason why you have to flick to do this is because if you don't flick, you get... this guy is obviously going to be strafing as well, so unless they're doing one straight path, then you could probably track, but you want to be able to make one calculation, flick to where that is, and then shoot your orb. If you're trying to track them along here, you'll be making loads of different calculations, which isn't good. So you might be tracking and shoot and then go, okay, that's too slow, and then go ahead, and then, so it just doesn't work. You basically want to be able to flick, 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 flick to wherever they're going to be, and that way your orb should land. So that's kind of like the basic way of flicking, of shooting Zen's left click. Right click's a bit different. Right click is a burst of projectiles, like this. So you want to actually track those along with them, slightly in front of them, because it'll go da-da-da-ding, So yeah, that's the basic on how you want to aim with Zen. But again, this changes if you're against a projectile or if you're against a hit scan player. So now let's imagine that this is like a hands or something again, and this is you. So we follow the same dodging technique where they're going to try and shoot in here, and this is their orb or arrow is going to go, and then you change direction. Well, basically what you want to do is the exact opposite of this. So as you get to where you're about to change direction, you want to send your orb out, because that way you've had the longest time to line up your shot and make your calculation of where you need to flick, and then you instantly change direction afterwards so that you're not predictable. And then again, the same for this side. So basically it looks something like this, and wherever it is that you're about to change direction, you then fire along there. So it might be sooner or later than this line I've drawn, but you get the whole idea, so that it's not... It looks something like this, basically. Right? Now, obviously you won't just be doing it like this, you might add like a stutter step in or something like that. But in general, I like to not just spam as quick as I can, because then you're moving so fast and you're ADing so quickly that if a projectile comes in, let's say I'm doing it between these two markers, if a projectile comes in, it has a low chance of hitting me if I'm anywhere random in there, but if I'm between here and here, just ADing, if a projectile comes straight down the center, no matter where he aims it, it's always going to end up hitting me, because I'm not moving enough. So you need to make sure that your strafes are longer than what they would be for a hit scan, but not so long that you become too predictable, which would be something like this. This is too long, because you're so predictable here. Around this length is what I usually go for, something like this, with like an occasional stutter in, an occasional duck. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic for projectile shooting. And the hit scan is kind of a similar thing, but you just want to fire more frequently. So hit scan, you'll be along a smaller path of strafing. And I'm not sure if this is actually a good technique, but what I tend to do is so in here, every kind of half step, I kind of like this, right? So it's a lot, and you can get the full, like if you hold down your mouse, this is as fast as Zen fires. I do it a bit slower than that, but it's almost his highest firing speed. But with a projectile, I'd say that it's a lot slower than his highest firing speed. And I don't really know the reason why I do this, or if this is a good thing or not. Obviously take everything I say with a pinch of salt. I've only actually been up to like low GM, 4.1. But in general, this seems to work better against a hit scan, and it seems to be easier for me to aim. So yeah, when I fire like this against hit scan and like this against projectile. So there is a very slight difference. The best way of practicing these is just honestly go in a deathmatch. There are some try-hard deathmatches that people host, and just try, if you're in a 1v1 against a Hanzo, try and do the long strafe and find out, okay, well, I strafed for way too long there, or I just was like on the spot, and then figure out, your angles and what you need to do. And then again, the same, if I'm against a Zarya, it works way better like this. And then against a McCree or something, you want to add a duck in or a crouch in. So that basic thing. And then there's also the last thing is the right click, or kind of like a shoot around corner. This is another firing technique. Let's try and find a corner I can do this on. So kind of here, if there's a bot down there, you basically want to be able to know when your crosshair is going to hit them and when you need to click. Like that. Because if this is a high-ranked game, I'm not really sure how it is in like the lower-ranked games, but if this is a high-ranked game and this is a good Widowmaker, that much of a peek like that will get me dead. So like I'm gonna die if I'm trying to especially if I'm just trying to 1v1 a Widow like this, and they're strafing as well, I'm gonna die there. No way I'm surviving, because that player's gonna hit like the shot probably like 7-8 times out of 10. Even if I'm doing all like my strafes, and they'll be moving around as well, so you'll also have to aim at them. So yeah, definitely this is a good technique if you're trying to take down a Widow, which I don't recommend, but yeah, so in general, stuff like this is relatively safe until you get too predictable. If you do this a lot, you're not really that safe anymore. In which case you should then try and just do a right click, peek, and then go back. And you can do this, you can literally just spam this into any choke. If you imagine this is a choke point, like literally anywhere. I can't think of one off the top of my head, like the front of Hanamura, that front gate, first point defense. Literally just hold your right click, fire it down the choke. If this is their Reinhardt, I usually fire it off somewhere near him, because that's where supports or where DPS will usually play. Unless you think he's about to drop his shield, in which case just fire it at him. You can get some really quick ult charge that way. So that's kind of the main techniques. There is one thing I would say is incredibly important, and that is that a lot of lower ranked players tend to just hold down left click and try and aim that way, which if I'm doing that now, you see my aim is really, really affected. Like, my shots are just completely off when turning around. It's kind of pointless to do this, honestly. A thing that I find way better is just waiting a couple seconds until you find that your shot is actually going to hit. And that way your shots are only ones that you think are going to be impactful. And in general it means that you'll be dealing a lot more DPS per 20 orbs that you have, so per reload essentially. So yeah, that's just one thing I've found to really help. Don't just spam your button down. Really like try and place each individual shot, and you'll find that your accuracy will increase over time. So yeah, I hope this helped, and good luck in your climb.